everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Helen and today I'm excited to be talking about Eurovisionathon 2025. This is the announcement video for the Readathon, which will run from the 19th of April till the 17th of May. And this year I feel is going to be my favourite year. It's the most books I've had on my shelves and as options for the countries. I always try and find at least one book for each country, but sometimes they're books that I'm not as fussed about because it's the only one I could find for that country, whereas in most cases now I think I've found at least two for each country and they're all ones that I'm really excited about. So you don't have to be interested in the Eurovision Song Contest to take part in the Readathon, although I think a lot of people who are really into it get more excited about it. You just need to be able to read as many books within that time period that relate to the Eurovision countries. There are 37 countries taking part altogether. So if you can read 37 books, then you will get all of the points during the Readathon. The point system is basically whatever the country gets in the Eurovision Song Contest as the points on the final night will be the points that you'll get for that country if you read for that country. So if France gets 230 points, for example, and you have read for France, then you will get 230 points. The interesting thing in this readathon is at the beginning you're pretty much reading blind unless you look at the odds, the betting odds for the countries, and then you might get an idea of which are supposedly going to do better. You might decide to listen to the songs and pick your favourites, but it's pretty much blind at the beginning. And then when we get to that final week and they have the semi-finals of the contest, some countries will get kicked out. And so there may be countries that you've read a book for that actually you won't get any points for because they're no longer in the contest. And in the past couple of years, we've had countries that have been kicked out. And so if you've read for that country, I think, was it the Netherlands last year? I'm not 100%, but I think they got disqualified at one point and I'd read for that country, so I got no points for that country. In that last week, after the semi-finals, some people then look at the countries that they haven't read for and quickly try and cram a couple of extra books in. So yeah, it can be quite exciting near the end. But as I say, you don't have to be interested in the contest. You don't have to watch the contest because I do a scoreboard at the end to let people know what points they've got. We have had people in the past who've read all of the countries that are in the final and so they've got all the points, but really it's a competition with yourself, not with each other. And we've got a really good group of people who take part every year who are in the Discord, and so even though that Discord throughout the year might just be sporadic because people might find books and they'll suggest them, when it gets to that period between April and May, it's buzzing and there's lots of interest and people are excited. That's also the place to find out recommendations for the books if you want. Normally I do a countdown to Eurovisionathon a month before so that I can list each country and maybe suggest some books. I might do this year. I might do that. I might do it on my stories on Instagram and just each day put maybe the book that I'm reading. I haven't decided how I'm going to do that yet, but the Discord is there. You can also follow hashtag Eurovisionathon on Twitter and people will be posting up there, the same on Instagram. And there is a specific Twitter account. It's at Eurovisionathon, so you can find us there. I haven't got a specific Instagram page for it, but if you just follow Helen's Bookhaven, I will post stuff on there as well. I think that's all the information you need to take part in the readathon. Most years I assume people know now and they just kind of lead on with what books I'm reading, and then I thought, well, actually when new people come on, I really need to get better at doing that like quick few minute elevator pitch about what the Eurovisionathon is about. Actually, there's other booktubers who are better at describing my readathon than me, but hey ho, we're there now. So I'm going to go through each country and tell you which book or books I'm considering for that country. But as I've mentioned, there's always plenty of recommendations around on the different social media channels, and if you want to get in touch with me either in the comments or via Twitter or Instagram or on the Discord and ask for recommendations, I have got lists on spreadsheets because this readathon's ran since 2020, so I have got the past 4 or 5 years of books that people have read for the different countries, so we do have many options. My options that I've got here, I've managed to get quite a lot physically, but I'm also going to be reading some on Everand, Kindle Unlimited, BorrowBox, Libby. Yeah, so they're coming from lots of different places. And the fact that I've got options means that when I get to that moment, if I don't feel like the book that I've got, there are other choices as well. And I'm always open to looking at other people's options and maybe changing my mind then as well. So I will try and go in order. So let's start with Albania. I've got my notebook. So for Albania, what I'm gonna do is, I can't necessarily give a description for every book. So if you want to go in and look, I tend to just pop on Amazon and look at the description there. It's available online. You can look for these descriptions there. But where I've got them, I will try and give you a quick breakdown of information about what the book is about. So for Albania, I found 2 on Everand. So there's one called Wear Pink, Love Yourself by Ethan Walker. And there's one called An Unruled Body by Annie Jika. Yeah, Annie Jika. So if you look for those 2, they could be options for Albania. Then Armenia, this is one that I've mentioned before, and it's called Travels in My 80s, and that's by Dermot Hope Simpson. That is on Everand as well. I think I mentioned it last year. I'm trying to expand. If there's been books that have been on my shelf for a while for a country, I've either tried to unhaul them, read them. I don't want to keep mentioning the same books in these videos, and that's another point as well. I have done announcement videos and TBR videos for Eurovisionathon over the last few years, so you can go back and look at other videos, and all my book options that I'm suggesting or have picked are on there as well. Excuse me. So let's have a look. Australia. Australia is never a country I struggle for. People will remember that I've had 2 constants on there that I've mentioned before. There was Sari by Sue, I think it was Sue Dharmapala. I ended up getting rid of that one and hauling it. Nothing to do with the book, but that first story was really hard hitting and I just couldn't continue with any of the stories. And there was Devotion by Hannah Kemp, but I'm hoping to read that in March for another readathon. So they're 2 options just as an ad lib. But I am considering reading Around the World in 80 Men Australia. For people who've been here before, you may remember that San Marino is a country that's quite hard to pick for, and I found a book on Kindle Unlimited called Around the World in 80 Men, San Marino. This is a massive series of books. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I wouldn't necessarily say it's my cup of tea, but they're quite fast to read, and so there is an Australian version of that, so I might do that. However, recently at my library, I've noticed that on BorrowBox, they're offering the chance to go on a Zoom Q&A with Leanne Moriarty, and so I may read one of her books during that time because I'll have by then listened to her chat. So for Austria, there are 2 options. There is In the Fast Lane by Lottie Moore. I think this does mention a couple of options, but I've decided to go for this. It says, a complex web of family relationships and life challenges is vividly weaved by octogenarian author Lottie Moore, who exposes both the craziness and triviality of life in the fast lane, marriage breakdowns and corruption, catastrophe and chaos, romance and relationships. This is an emotional, moving portrait of the ups and downs of family life and poses the question, can we ever be truly happy living in the fast lane? So there's that one. But there's also one called Not Cool Europe by Train in a Heatwave by Jules Brown. I really love that cover. It says, a laugh out loud train journey across Europe with a travel writer who should know better. Inspired by the budget interrail trips of his youth, veteran travel writer Jules Brown thought he'd try and visit 9 cities in 9 countries in 9 days. Sadly, that wasn't his only mistake. But this does mention that he travels by rail across Europe, taking in Berlin, Prague, Vienna, Bratislava, Ljubljana, Zagreb, Liechtenstein, Zurich and Milan. So that can be used for multiple countries, which is again why I wanted to mention it here. Even if I don't read it for Austria, there are other countries involved, and because that's quite a short one, that could be one for the final weeks if you were trying to squash one of those countries in. So next is Azerbaijan, and for this one I've got Gentleman Jack by Angela Steedell, and that's on Everand, and that's the one based on the TV. Well, it's based on a real life person, but there was an adaptation on the TV with Saran Jones in it, so that could be an option. And then there's another one called 3 Minutes of Eternity by Alan Amay on KU. That one is about He's a journalist who's been behind the scenes at Eurovision a lot himself, and so he's written a book, and so that's available on KU. So for Belgium, I have got The Restoration of Otto Lard by Nigel Packer. This says, the peaceful, if slightly bemused existence of this elderly retired architect is rudely interrupted when he learns that his most revolutionary and controversial building, Marlow House, a 1960s local authority tower block in South London, is to be demolished. Determined to do everything in his power to save the building, Otto returns to London for the first time in 25 years. So I don't know if he comes from Belgium originally and then ends up back in London, not 100%, but I'm pretty sure you can use this for Belgium. For Croatia, I have got, I'll take that out, The Dubrovnik Book Club by Eva Glynn. I saw this mentioned by the author on Twitter, and then it was in the works in one of their deals. It says, in a tiny bookshop in Dubrovnik's historical old town, a book club begins. Newly arrived on the sun-drenched shores of Croatia, Claire Thompson's life is about to change forever when she starts working at a local bookshop. With her cousin, veteran employee Luna, and Carmela, a professor, they form an unlikely book club. So, love anything to do with book clubs, books in books. Yeah, really up for that one. For Cyprus, I found one on Libby called The Unspeakable Acts of Zina Pavlov, or Pavlou, and that's by Eleni Kryakou. I'm sorry if I'm butchering these. If I remember rightly, this was about a woman who's been accused of a murder, and the person who's looking into it is kind of covering this case and trying to decide along the way if the woman has actually done it or not. So it just sounded really interesting. For Czechia, I have found two options. One I managed to get, it was a withdrawn book from a library, St. Paul Public Library. I don't know where that is, I'm going to look that up. But I got this one off eBay, and it's called Keeping Bedlam at Bay in the Prague Cafe by M. Henderson Ellis. And does it say in the back what it's about? No, it doesn't. It just says a brilliant and darkly comic novel about globalism, coffee and pills. So we will see. So there's that one. And then I found this at the library by accident the other day. It's called Parasol Against the Axe, and it's by Helen Oyeyemi. And it says, Oyeyemi treats you to a kaleidoscopic weekend in Prague, as dazzling as it is effortlessly unique. Get lost in the story like you would in an unfamiliar city, and let it reward you with moments of philosophical clarity, wheelbarrow rides, raw emotion and raw onions. This novel is a holiday, an adventure, a marvel and a guide. It's a story about the lies behind the lies we tell, and city as a living thing sustained by the lives of its inhabitants. So there's that one. Again, loving the cover. I've lost my page in my book now. So that was Czechia. All of my Eurovisionathon, that's one of the previous years, are in here. And at some point I'm hoping to do merch for the Readathon. I just want to give a quick shout out here to Ellie from Earl Grey Books. She's done our new logo for Eurovisionathon, and I absolutely love it. She's actually having hers put on a sweater, which I need to do. But I just don't think I've got time to do things like bookmarks and mugs and just arrange all that. If anybody's got any suggestions of how to go about that quite quickly and get it up, please let me know. Otherwise that's going to be a next year thing. So for Denmark, I have mentioned this one before many times, and I really want to go for it. If you don't know, I've got a husband who's got lovely red hair. I've got a daughter who's got lovely red hair, and so I wanted to read this one, which I picked up for £1. I can't remember where. But it's called Red, and it's by Jackie Collis Harvey, is that? Sticker over it. Harvey, yeah. And it's basically about the natural history of the redhead. So yeah, I really want to get that read this year, and I'm picking that for Denmark, but I'm pretty sure other countries are mentioned in there. For Estonia, is this the only one I'm going for Estonia? Yeah. So for Estonia, again, this was the withdrawal at my local library. It's called Eastern Horizons, Hitchhiking the Silk Road, and it's by Leveson Wood. And it says, Leveson Wood was only 22 when he decided to hitchhike from England to India through Russia, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, but he wasn't the conventional follower of the hippie trail. A fascination with the deeds of the early explorers, a history degree in the bag, an army career already planned, and a shoestring budget of £750, including for the flight home. He was determined to find out about the countries of the Caucasus and beyond to meet the people who lived and worked there. So I've picked this out for Estonia because it is mentioned in there, but you can use it for Czechia as well. So yeah, there's that one. As you know, I love travel non-fiction, so you will find many of those in this list. The next one is Finland, and I have gone for Ticket to Ride Around the World on 49 Unusual Train Journeys by Tom Cheshire. I might have mentioned this last year as well. I got this in the works in the deal. This can be used for the countries as well. I've just chosen to read it for Finland, but it also mentions Macedonia, let's see, Finland, Australia, France, Italy, Poland, Spain, Switzerland, Lithuania. So it can be used for multiple, but yeah, just looking at those 49 unusual train journeys, and I'm going to use that for Finland. For France, there's always plenty of options for France. For this time, I've decided to go for Walking Back to Happiness by Penelope Swithenbank. It's not a massive one. It says 2 vicars, their marriage in tatters with wounds reaching far back into the past, set out on a journey to find healing and restoration. Their route will take them from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic, but will it help them find their way home? Along the 320-mile route across rural France, burdened by backpacks and blisters, Kim and Penelope stumble across fresh truths from some ordinary, others extraordinary. But will they be defeated by the road ahead or triumph over the pain of the past? Is there a chance they'll find themselves in France and walk back to happiness? So yeah, I love any kind of pilgrimage or, you know, walking and finding yourself kind of thing, cycling and finding yourself, anything like that. Love it. Georgia, which is normally a hard country to get for, I have 3 options here. Lastly, of the 3, but I'm going with it first, I'd picked the other 2 out, and then I found this one online. It is quite tiny, but I love the fact that it was written by this person when they were very young. So she was a young girl when she wrote this, and I thought, oh, it would be nice to support that. So it's Tamuna Sertsvads, I think, but it's called The Herdsman of Wolves. It says Tamuna Sertsvads, sorry if that's wrong, is a young author of children's books as well as a game writer and a screenwriter. I was just telling a bit about her. She began publishing in 2013. Since then, she's slowly gained popularity through young readers on many online platforms. Tamuna currently lives in Tbilisi, is that it, Georgia, and works on children's books, animation, screenplays, and 3D and 2D games. There she is. So yeah, it just sounded interesting, and it was short, and I haven't got many short books on this pile. But there is also Tender Maps by Alice Medicott, and I mentioned that last year. You used to be able to get that on Everand, so unfortunately at the minute I can't tell you exactly where to get that unless you go and buy it online, and I don't think it's really very cheap. But I'm hoping at some point Everand might put it back on, preferably in time for the Readathon. And then I found another one called The Eighth Life by Nino Haratisvili, but I believe that one's between 600 and 800 pages, so it's quite a hefty one. That would probably be one to read like so many pages a day and complete it by the end of the Readathon, and I can get that on Libby. Might be able to get it on BorrowBox as well, but I will probably end up going with this one. For Germany, I have picked The World's Worst Mothers by Sabine Ludwig. What I like to do is, when it comes to, I think it's January time, Waterstones always put out a sale of a load of books, like clearance books, and quite often you can find ones for a lot of obscure countries on there, and so I always have a little look. Anyway, unfortunately this one wasn't for an obscure country because I'm reading it for Germany, and I'm pretty sure you can read it for Ireland as well, but you'd have to check that out. But the author is from Germany, because that is another thing about the Readathon. It just has to link in some way to that country, so it can be based there. The author can be from there. There can be a character from there. If there is some link there, however tenuous, you can use it for that country. I'm not going to be monitoring that too carefully. So it says, when they hear about a competition to find the world's worst mother, Bruno and Sophie and Emily are all delighted to volunteer their annoying mothers. Their mothers duly disappear and are replaced by their ideal Aunt Annas, who cook only the kids' favourite foods and never make them do their homework or tidy their rooms. But the children soon discover that there is something sinister about these Aunt Annas, and they set out to rescue their real mums from the clutches of a crazy toy maker on a remote island. A fishy tale of betrayal, intrigue and adventure on the high seas, and the dog gets shot. Oh, jeez. And the dog gets shot. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's set in Ireland. I know it's published there, but I'm pretty sure the author is from Germany. So I am reading it for Germany. Bear with me. Next is Greece. Again, not a country I've struggled for. I've just read one called Skios by Michael... Can't remember the surname, but I will put a picture of it up here. I had 2 books for Greece, and I needed one for Roll of Reeds, for Set on an Island, and it was set on the island of Skios, so I picked that one. I gave it 1 star. It's very unusual for me to give a book 1 star. I would normally just DNF it, but I was kind of intrigued to see where this story went. It is like a farce, and it is very all over the place and fast paced, and so I think that's kind of what he was intending to do anyway, but I just thought it was very unrealistic. And so if you decide to read that, please let me know what you thought of it, and by all means let me know if you think I'm wrong. But I have decided to read Mrs. Winterbottom Takes a Gap Year by Joanna Nell for Greece. Again, I think this was one that was in the works. It says, it's never too late for the adventure of a lifetime. Heather Winterbottom has worked side by side with her husband as GPs in their idyllic rural practice for over 40 years. But as the time comes to hang up their stethoscopes, the Winterbottoms discover that they have rather different visions of retirement. Heather dreams of exploring the Greek islands, of escaping the shackles of her routine life and embracing an exciting new adventure. Alan dreams of growing his own vegetables. When things come to a head at a family lunch, Heather announced that she's decided to take a year off from her old life from a marriage from Alan. So I'm assuming we're going to see where they end up. So that is for Greece. For Iceland, you'll have seen this one before. I definitely want to read this year. I think Iceland got kicked out last year, or they didn't enter. I can't remember which way around, but that's why I didn't end up reading it last year. Butterflies in November by Order Eva Olafsdottir. It says, it's been a tough day. She's been dumped twice. She's accidentally killed a goose, and now she's suddenly responsible for her best friend's deaf-mute son. But when a shared lottery ticket turns the oddly matched pair into the richest people in Iceland, she and the boy find themselves on a road trip across the country. With cucumber hotels, dead sheep, and any number of her exes on their tail, Butterflies in November is a blackly comic and uniquely moving tale of motherhood, friendship, and the power of words. So, Iceland. Next, we've got Ireland. Now, never a country I struggle for, and at Christmas my dad got me in like a Christmas Eve type box. He did one for the whole family and he put a book in there for me, obviously. Maybe Next Christmas by Emma Hetherington. And so although it's Christmas, I do want to read it, and I thought it would be a good time. So it says, it's Christmas Eve, and as the snow begins to fall, Bea is at Heathrow Airport, ready to return home to Ireland for the festivities. In the departure lounge, she meets Ollie for the first time. They talk about everything and anything, and their connection is undeniable. But when their flight lands, they leave just as they met strangers. A chance encounter in London a few months later, however, sparks a chain of events neither of them could have imagined. So there's that one, if I fancy a bit of Christmas spirit in April and May. Or my mum gave me this one the other day that she'd finished with, and it's called Quentin's by Maeve Binchy. And it says, every table at Quentin's restaurant in Dublin has 1,000 stories to tell. The staff and customers all have tales of their own, and the restaurant owners themselves have had more than their fair share of trials to cope with. Now Ella Brady wants to make a documentary about the renowned restaurant, but as she uncovers more of what has gone on, she questions the wisdom of bringing it to the screen. And when she's forced to confront a devastating dilemma in her own life, Ella wonders if some stories should not be told. So there's options for Ireland. Israel, there are 3 books here that are options. I do believe I'm going to go for this first one, which again was in that Waterstones clearance sale, The Land Beneath the Light, and this is a Palestinian reimagining of Jane Eyre. I really love Jane Eyre, which is why I'm probably going to read this one. It's by Shireen Malherbe. Love that cover as well. It says, from her rural farmhouse at the bottom of the hilltop surrounded by the occupation, Khadija's life changes forever when the shadows descend, causing destruction in her village. In the wake of upheaval and ruin, she draws upon her deeply rooted Palestinian heritage and stories to discover a life she's always dreamed of. A classic coming-of-age novel, The Land Beneath the Light, explores the lived reality of those living under occupation in Palestine. So there's that one. Then there's one called David Grossman, More Than I Love My Life, which is again in that Waterstone sale. On a kibbutz in Israel, Jilly is celebrating the 90th birthday of her grandmother Vera, the adored matriarch of a sprawling and tight-knit family. But festivities are interrupted by the arrival of Nina, the iron-willed daughter who rejected Vera's care, and the absent mother who abandoned Jilly when she was still a baby. Nina's return to the family after years of silence precipitates an epic journey from Israel to the island of Goli Otok, formerly part of Yugoslavia. So I wonder if it touched on Czechia, not 100%. It's here that the three women will finally come to terms with the terrible moral dilemma that Vera faced and that permanently altered the course of their lives. And then there's another one, In My Mother's Footsteps, a Palestinian refugee returns home, by Mona Hajar Halabi. And it says, when Mona moved from California to Ramallah to teach conflict resolution in a school for a year, she kept a journal. Within its pages, she wrote her impressions of her homeland, a place she'd only experienced through her mother's memories. As she settled into her teaching role, getting to know her students and the challenges they faced living in a militarised, occupied town, Mona also embarked on a personal pilgrimage to find her mother's home in Jerusalem. So, plenty for Israel there. Italy, I have decided to go for the Grand Tour, Travels with My Elders by Ben Aitken. People will remember that I did one of his books for Poland and didn't get along with it. Then in the past I read a book about looking at how to create fun in your life, and I quite enjoyed that one. And so now I'm trying this one, which says, A Grumpy Millennial, 6 coach tips on one heck of a generation gap. When Ben Aitken, 33, but don't remind him, learned that he could enjoy a 4-night holiday including 4 3-course dinners, 4 cooked breakfasts, 4 games of bingo, a pair of excursions, 16 pints of lager, return coach travel and the uninterrupted company of people of pensionable age, all for £100. He thought that's the life and signed himself up 6 times over. Good value aside, what Ben was really after was the company of his elders, those with the wisdom granted by experience, the candour gifted by time, and the hard-earned ability to live each day like it's nearly their last. A series of coach holidays ensue to Scarborough, St Ives, Llandudno, Killarney, Lake Como and Pitlochry, during which Ben attempts to shake off his 30-something blues by getting old as soon as possible. So Italy's mentioned, Ireland's mentioned, and obviously UK is mentioned, so there's 3 options there, but thought that sounded interesting. But there's also Diary of a Film by Niven Govindan. Again, another Waterstone sale one. And an author, together with his lead actors, is at a prestigious European festival to premiere his latest film. Alone one morning at a backstreet cafe, he strikes up a conversation with a local woman who takes him in on a walk to uncover the city's secrets, historic and personal. As the walk unwinds, a story of love and tragedy emerges, and he begins to see the chance meeting as fate. He is entranced, wholly clear in his mind. Her story must surely form the basis for his next film. So there's that one. Then we've got Latvia, The Bookshop on the Corner by Jenny Colgan. I didn't know this was for Latvia, but apparently there is a Latvian character in it. This says, escape to the Scottish Highlands where a little bus packed with books bring joy to the road. Nina is a librarian who spends her days happily matchmaking books and people. She always knows what someone should read next, but when her beloved library closes and she's suddenly out of a job, Nina has no idea what to do next. Then an advert catches her eye. She could be the owner of a tiny little bookshop bus driving around the Scottish Highlands. So we will see what happens for Nina there. Then for Lithuania, that doesn't look like Lithuania. Oh, that's because it's on Everand. I'm going to be reading one, From Russia with Lunch by David Smiet, but it definitely focuses on Lithuania there. Can't tell you much about that apart from that it's a travel non-fiction. Then there's another one called To Walk It Is to See It by Kathy Elkiad. And I'm going to be read that for Luxembourg, and that is also on Everand. Again, another kind of walking along finding yourself book, I think. For Malta, on BorrowBox, I found one called Summer on a Sunny Island by Sue Moorcroft. So I will be reading that for Malta, and I believe Malta is meant to be quite high up on the betting odds, so that might be one people want to read quite early on. For Montenegro, I found one called Between the Titans, and that's by Rico Radojic, and that is on Everand. Don't know much about that one. Then for the Netherlands, I've decided to go for another one that I found on the Waterstones clearance sale. Summertime, All the Cats Are Bored by Philippe Georgette, I think it is. Yeah. It says, it's the middle of a long hot summer in the French Mediterranean, so you can also read it for France. The town of Perpignan is teeming with tourists. Sabag and Molino, two tired cops who are being slowly devoured by dull routine and family worries, deal with the day's misdemeanours and petty complaints at police headquarters. But then a young Dutch woman is found murdered on the beach and another disappears without a trace. Is it a serial killer obsessed with Dutch women? The media senses fresh meat and moves in for the feeding frenzy. Inspector Giles Seabag finds himself thrust into the middle of a diabolical game. He'll have to put aside his cares, forget his suspicions about his wife's unfaithfulness, ignore his heart murmur, and get over his existential angst. Even so, there is more to this case than anyone suspects. So that is for, what did I say, the Netherlands. Then for Norway, I am going for 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. I think this is the first in a duology. Yeah, the next one is 1,000 Broken Pieces, which I managed to get as a withdrawn book from the library. So if I like this one, I will move on to that one, although I don't think that one mentions Norway much. This one says, Rune Christiansen and Poppy Litchfield met as children and swore to be friends forever. As teenagers, this grew into a love that promised to last a lifetime, but their worlds were shattered when Rune was sent home to his native Norway. 2 years later, Rune is back and Poppy is ready for their happy ever after to begin, but the boy who returns is not the Rune she remembers. What happened to turn her sweet, thoughtful Rune into this brooding stranger, and will the secret Poppy is carrying bring them closer together or separate them forever? So, Norway. Then, nearly there. Then for Portugal, I've decided to go There's an Egg in My Soup by Tom Galvin, and that's on Everand. Can't tell you much about that one, but it does sound funny. For Portugal, I've got two options. The first one I found on Libby, and it's called Seasons of Love by Harper Bliss. But then I found a book that I was really interested in anyway in the library, and then I was delighted to find out that it mentions Portugal in there. So it's called The Connection Cure, and it's about the prescriptive power of movement, nature, art, service and belonging, and it's by Julia Hotz. And it says, traditionally when we get sick, healthcare professionals ask, what's the matter with you? But around the world, teams of doctors, nurses, therapists and social workers have started to flip the script, asking what matters to you. Instead of solely pharmaceutical prescriptions, they offer social prescriptions, referrals to community activities and resources like photography classes, gardening groups and volunteering gigs. The results speak for themselves. Science shows that social prescribing is effective for treating symptoms of the modern world's most common ailments: depression, ADHD, addiction, trauma, anxiety, chronic pain, dementia, diabetes and loneliness. As Hotz tours the globe to investigate the spread of social prescribing to more than 30 countries, she meets people personifying its revolutionary potential. I'm going to stop there, but it does mention Portugal, and there was one other country that I specifically saw, and the Netherlands, but it says and the European Union, so it might be worth having a quick flick through just to see, but I think those are the main two countries, so I'm going to use it for Portugal, because I probably am going to pick this one out of the two. But you can also use it for the Netherlands as well. And if I decide to go for that other one for Portugal, and I don't fancy the Summertime All the Cats Are Bored about the dead Dutch women, then I may go for that one for the Netherlands instead. And that's where it's good to have ones that cover a few countries. For San Marino, I found this one and I was delighted because San Marino has always been very hard. I think one of the years I managed to find a really old Mills and Boon that was set in San Marino when I read that. Then I read the Kindle one, Around the World in 80 Men. And so I finally feel like I found a book that might be very me. So it says, Follow Your Joy, a book that will inspire you to live a more joyful life. And it's by Jacqueline Amour. And it says, as a lover of travelling, Jacqueline is constantly inspired by stories shared on her travels, world history, and the possibility of what could be, living by the philosophy you get from the world what you put into it. She believes each country is the stepping stone to the next, but in its own right a wonder, and by following the feeling of joy, the universe will reward you with some fascinating experiences. We all think the outcome we seek is the destination or the goal, but as we soon learn, it is the journey we take when we do the things that bring us joy. In 2020, she was lucky to visit a country number 90, San Marino. She embraced the space and quiet of a year the world will remember forever, to reflect on her life so far and all the countries she's been fortunate to explore a little. She felt guided to share some of her travel tales and experiences that have guided and influenced her life. So she stirs stories of the world through the eyes of someone who's wandered the streets of 90 countries, so it is worth having a quick Scooby through here and seeing which countries she visits. I'm just looking if it specifically... No, it doesn't tell me exactly where she visits. Or Italy was one of them. Ethiopia, so that's not going to be Eurovision. Let's have a look. I will try and find quickly if any touch. We're not having much luck, but definitely San Marino, unless that's a hard country, it's worth it. No. Albania, so you can use it for Albania as well. But again, I'd just have a quick have a look through. But so you've got Albania for that, but I'm reading it for San Marino. So, and that country cover is beautiful as well. The cover experience I've had this year has been very good. So let's have a look. Serbia next. So again, I've got two for this. So I read about one called Fear and His Servant by Mirjana Novakovic. This series is called Peter Owen World Series. I found out about it online and I had a look which countries they covered. So I found this one which mentions Serbia, and I found another one later for one of the other obscure countries. This one says, the Devil and Princess Maria Augusta of Thurn and Taxis tell unreliable tales of vampires and political intrigue in 18th century Serbia. Fear and His Servant unites a multi-layered narrative with a row of fictitious characters, archetypal forces and contemporary politicians. Using a conventional Gothic plot about the search for vampires in 18th century Serbia, Fear and His Servant tells of countless political traps and eternal struggle for power. Blending horror with politics and mystery with history, this novel turns into a truly postmodern recount of politics and religion. The reader is offered nothing less than the devil's version of the New Testament and apocryphal recount of the history of Belgrade. It's translated from Serbian. We will see, because now I'm thinking I want to go for the other one. I found it at the book cycle by me, where you can just donate whatever you can afford and pick 3 books out. I only picked this one because this was the only one I wanted, so I give them a little bit of money and then I give them 2 books that I was getting rid of. It's called The Beardless Adventurer and Her Inconvenience by Donna Marie Ashton. A first-time cycle trip across Europe. So it does mention multiple countries, but I am going to use it for Serbia. When Donna and Ian, a couple in their late 40s with no previous cycling experience, decide on the spur of the moment to cycle across an entire continent, you can rightly assume things might not go according to plan. And with little knowledge but much determination, they attempt a self-supported cycle tour, carrying everything they need and camping along the way, normally the domain of hardy, beardy adventurers or Olympic athletes. Join the beardless adventurer and her inconvenience on their epic and often highly amusing trip through Europe, wondering if they will even make it through the first night or week, let alone 5,000 kilometres. Countries that you might be able to use this for. There is definitely a map somewhere here, so I should be able to tell you if I can find it. I've just seen it and it's gone off again. Why can't I find that first map? Right, so as I said, I'm using it for Serbia, but they travel through France, Switzerland, Germany, Austria, Slovakia, but they're not in it this year, Serbia, or Bulgaria is not in it this year. So you've got those ones: France, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and then Serbia. So another one with many options. Then we've got, this is another one of those Peter Owen World series books. I'm reading this for Slovenia, and it's called None Like Her by Jela Kresic. It says, Matt Jazz is fearful of losing his friends over his obsession with his ex-girlfriend. To prove that he's moved on from his relationship with her, he embarks on an odyssey of dates around Ljubljana, is that? The capital of Slovenia. In this comic and romantic tale, a chapter is devoted to each new encounter and adventure. The women he selects are wildly different from one another, and the interactions of the characters are perspicuously and memorably observed. So yeah, I thought that sounded quite interesting. There are other books in this series. Oh, it says the other titles in the Slovenian season are Three Loves, One Death by Evold Flizar and Panorama by Dusan Saratar. So it is worth looking for other countries within that Peter Owen World series. But I'm really happy to have found these. They're not short. I thought they would come and be really slim. They're not. They're quite meaty. So that was for Slovenia. For Spain, I am doing a buddy read, and I am doing that buddy read with my best Eurovision YouTube friend, Earl Grey Books, Ellie from Earl Grey Books, and she has asked if I will read The Fiancé Dilemma by Elena Armas. I gifted her this for Christmas, and I got myself a copy as well. It says, Josie Moore has given love plenty of chances, 4 if you count all her failed engagements and 5 if you include her previously absentee famous father. When the latter announces his retirement with a splashy magazine piece about family, Josie learns that her romantic history has become a PR nightmare. Matthew Flanagan is out of luck. It's bad enough that he's lost his job, but then whilst travelling to Greenock to escape, he manages to get his car stuck. The first person he comes across happens to be his best friend's sister, Josie, who oddly introduces him as her fiancé. What starts as a misunderstanding quickly turns into a fake engagement. A new ring on Josie's finger is the last thing she wants, but at least it's only temporary. They have rules in place and agreement that no matter what, nobody is saying I do. But it's not long before those lines begin to blur as the two find out that faking feelings might lead to the real thing. So I'm buddy reading this. We'll probably split it across the month because it is 413 pages, and obviously we want to fit as many countries in as possible. So I think we'll split that across that month. But also for Spain, I had The Tale of Senor Rodriguez by Lou Gilmond. So this is an option too. In 1960s Mallorca, Thomas Sebastian, an Englishman on the run, has taken an old Spanish finca as his hideout. He discovers the house untouched since the death of its last owner, renowned and distinguished Senor Rodriguez. With fine art on the walls, a library of books and a cellar full of wine, Thomas slips easily into his new life, walking, reading and drinking, falling in love with his neighbour, the beautiful but impossibly young Isabella Ferretti. But when he puts on Rodriguez's white linen suit and heads into the city, things get a little out of hand. So there's another option for Spain. I may save that one now till the mini Eurovisionathon that I sometimes do in November around the Junior Eurovision Song Contest. I don't watch that contest, but I like using the smaller list of countries to do like a 2-week readathon. So if you're interested in that, have a look around October time. That's when it will come. And some of these books you might see then that I can use up ready for next year. Or clear my shelf ready for next year, because I normally have a whole, this goes over a shelf now, so I do need to get as many of these gone as possible. I don't think I'll read 37. I think the most I've managed is like 26, so if I can beat that this year I will be made up. So for Sweden, I will be going with Big in Sweden by Sally Franson. I won this on a competition in Twitter and saved it for Eurovision. So this one says, Polly Johansson is lost on the brink of midlife. All she's got to show for herself is a dead-end job and some serious family baggage. Maybe that's why Drunken Shaw, it's a fool errand. She agrees to audition for Sverige och Mig, a Swedish reality show where Americans compete to win an unusual prize, a reunion with long-lost Scandinavian family. To everyone's surprise and her boyfriend Declan's disapproval, Paulie makes the final cast, dropping everything to jump on a plane to Sweden, armed only with a copy of Pippi Longstocking and a sense of possibility. At first, it seems clear that she's nothing in common with her fellow American contestants, but amid increasingly absurd challenges and on-camera meltdowns, followed at all times by a distractingly handsome Swedish cameraman, Paulie finds herself rethinking everything she thought she knew about her country, her family and herself. Sometimes you have to leave it all behind and find out what you've been looking for. If you love reality TV, I think this is going to be for you. But I also found one called Hitman Anders and the Meaning of It All by Jonas Jonasson, and this is the same author of The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out of the Window and Disappeared. It said, it's always awkward when 5,000 krona goes missing. When it happens at a certain grotty hotel in South Stockholm, it's particularly awkward because the money belongs to the hitman currently staying in room 7. Per person, the hotel receptionist just wants to mind his own business and preferably not get murdered. Johanna Jolanda, temporary resident in room 8, is a priest without a vocation and as of last week without a parish. But right now she has 2 things at her disposal, an envelope containing 5,000 krona and an excellent idea. So that's an option for Sweden as well. Then for Switzerland, I have 2 options. So you may have seen this one before. Slow Train to Switzerland by Dickon Buse. It says, in June 1863, an English lady, Miss Jemima, sets off by train on a trip of a lifetime, Thomas Cook's first conducted tour of Switzerland. A century and a half later, travel writer Dickon Buse decides to go where she went and see what she saw. Guided by her diary, followed the same route to discover how much has changed and how much has not. She went in search of adventure, he went in search of her, and he found far more than he expected. Slow Train to Switzerland is the captivating account of 2 trips through the Alps, hers glimpsing the future of travel, his revisiting its past. Together they make a journey to remember. That sounds really sweet. So there's that one, but there's also one called A Palm for Mrs. Polifax. Last year for Albania, I read the first in the Mrs. Polifax series by Dorothy Gilman. This is something like 3rd or 4th in the series. I think you can read them as standalones. I would prefer to read them in order. So in that first period in April, before Eurovisionathon starts from the 1st to the 18th, I'm going to be reading books to carry on series in order to read the next in the series for Eurovisionathon. So for that one, I will be reading 2 Mrs. Polifax books in order to get to this 4th one. And then I also will probably read Around the World in 80 Men and Around the World in 80 Men Scotland. So they're the first 2 in that series so that I then can read the Australian one. When I read San Marino, it was like book, 60 something in the series, and I read it anyway, but I prefer to read them in order. For the UK, I am going to be reading The Affair by Jasper Fforde. This will be the 3rd time that I've done the reread of this series. I met him recently at a author talk, and I will show the picture here. I was delighted to go to this chat. I took Andy with me. It was a steal. It was a £5 a ticket. It was Neston Library, which I've never been to before, which took us about an hour to get there, but it was worth it. Reason I want to reread this series, and by the way, I will be doing a read along of this series, so if you want to get involved, keep an eye out because I will do an announcement for it. The plan is that the 8th and final book in the Thursday Next series, which this book is from, is out in November. However, he mentioned that it might be early next year. So what I decided to do was read all 7 books from April up till October, and then buy the final one in November and read it in November. I'm still going to do the Readathon. I'm still going to read the first one in April for Eurovisionathon. But then after that, I might try and spread them a little bit so it's into next year, or it's not that long to wait from October till into the new year for the next book. As you'll know as a reader, if you've got a big long series, sometimes you're waiting a year plus for the next one. And this is why this is my 3rd reread of this series, because there's been big gaps in between. And so I've always gone back to the beginning and read through. So yeah, this is the first one. It says, meet Thursday Next literary detective without equal fear or boyfriend. There is another 1985 where London's criminal gangs have moved into the lucrative literary market, and Thursday Next is on the trail of the new crime wave's Mr. Big. Acheron Hades has been kidnapping characters from works of fiction and holding them ransom. Jane Eyre is gone missing. Thursday sets out to find a way into the book to repair the damage, but solving crimes against literature isn't easy when you also have to find time to halt the Crimean War, persuade the man you love to marry you, and figure out who really wrote Shakespeare's plays. Perhaps today just isn't going to be Thursday's day. Join her on a truly breathtaking adventure and find out for yourself fiction will never be the same again. So basically this one takes place in Jane Eyre, where she's trying to sort it so it doesn't get ruined, but she goes into lots of different books in this book world, and it is fantastic. So yeah, I'm going to be reading this for the UK, and I'm also going to be doing a read along, which I will announce in due course. I was able to purchase this with a voucher that I got from a friend on Instagram. I'm part of a birthday book club, and so There are 9 of us involved, 10 of us involved in that book club. And so for our birthdays each month, we buy each other gifts. And so I'm soon going to do a birthday book haul. My birthday was actually in February, but in this birthday book club, I have to have my birthday in March. So I've now got all of my gifts. And so I will talk through my bookish gifts in another video. But I bought this with one of the vouchers that one of the girls gave me. So shout out for that. Finally, Ukraine. I've got 2 options. The first one is one called Snake Town by Toby Wilshire. It says, Ludmila Shatilova, a Ukrainian emigre, and her 21-year-old daughter Rosie's devious plan to fleece their unsuspecting tenants, a secretive accountant and an affable night watchman, appears to be foolproof. By making sure the 2 men never meet and skillfully swapping their possessions twice a day, they can rent them the same flat and take double the rent. But each man has a secret, and events at the basement flat in the rundown seaside resort begin to unravel in spectacular fashion. Snake Town is playwright Toby Wilshire's brilliant, fantastic debut novel, packed with wit, invention, and the unlikely combination of a deadly snake, stray dog, 2 million in cash, a psychopathic drug dealer, and one very lucky postman. This is the one that I'd picked out for Ukraine. It is only 148 pages, so I thought perfect. However, it is not on Storygraph, and I like to use all my books on there so I can look at all my stats and include it in there to tick off. So that was really disappointing. But then I found one called Miracle from Ukraine by James H. Harrison on Everand. So I may do that one. But it seems a shame because I do fancy this one. So, and I have had experience with Storygraph where I've tried to put them on myself and they've never got back to me about it. So that's quite frustrating. But like I said, there's that other one, so I may read that one. So they are all the countries, they are all the options of books that I am considering this time. I also like to find books that you can read for multiple countries, and I have mentioned some of them here. But I also have got Bill Bryson, Neither Here Nor There Travels in Europe, which I got from a charity shop nearby. It says Bill Bryson's first travel book, The Lost Continent, was unanimously acclaimed as one of the funniest books in the year. In Neither Here Nor There, he brings his unique brand of humour to bear on Europe as he shoulders his backpack, keeps a tight hold on his wallet, and journeys from Hammerfest, the northernmost town on the continent, to Istanbul on the cusp of Asia. Fluent in, or at least one language, he retraces his travels as a student 20 years before, whether breathing the homicidal motorist of Paris, being robbed by gypsies in Florence, attempted not to order tripe and eyeballs in a German restaurant, or window shopping in the sex shops of Reeperbahn, Bryson takes in the sights, dissects the culture, and illuminates each place and person with his hilarious caustic observation. He even goes to Liechtenstein. So you've got Oslo, Paris, Brussels, Belgium, Cologne, Amsterdam, Hamburg, Copenhagen, Stockholm, Rome, Naples, Florence, Milan, Switzerland, Austria, Sofia. You can cover quite a few countries with that one, which is why I've mentioned it here. I don't think I'll need it, but it's an option. There's also one called It Takes Two, A History of the Couples Who Dared to Be Different by Kathy Newman. I don't know which countries exactly, but some of the big 5, like France, Italy and Germany, I'm pretty sure some of these couples could fall into that. So it's worth looking at that one as well. I also have Stanley Tucci, What I Ate in 1 Year. Now I'm thinking that this author, well, he obviously is an author, but he is obviously in the movies and he travels a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if some other countries are mentioned in there. So it might be worth a look for that one. So I think we're done. This video is already heading towards 45 minutes plus. So I think I'm going to leave it there. What I am going to do is put up a sign up form, and I'm also going to put up on the start of the Readathon a form for you to log each of your books. The only way that I can let you know what you've scored in the Readathon or do a weekly scoreboard or anything like that is if you have your name on that spreadsheet, and that's by logging each book that you do. You're very welcome to join the Storygraph. There is one on there. You're very welcome to share your TBRs and your books on Twitter and Instagram and in the Discord, but I will not be searching on there for people's books that they've read in order to tell you how many points you've got. So you do need to sign up on the sign up sheet, and you do need to log each of your books each time. Otherwise, I can't tell you what score you got, and I can't wait till the very end and let you all know your overall score. There are people who just want to be involved in all the other parts and not log the books, and that is fine. And you know, people take part on Storygraph that don't log the books on the spreadsheet, and that is fine too. But please don't come to me and say, oh, I've read all these books and you've not told me what score I got. I can't do that unless it's on this spreadsheet, so I do need you to fill the form out. But that is all you need to know. If you think it counts for a country, just use it. There is no minimum word count for a book. I want as many people to have this to be accessible to as many people as possible. So, you know, if your book is tiny, that counts as well. If there are children taking part and they read, you know, little readers or picture books or anything like that, all of it counts. So unless there's something really specific that you're really unsure about, by all means contact me. But otherwise, the Readathon kind of runs itself, and I just enjoy being involved in the chat about it. So let me know what you're reading for the different countries. Let me know any suggestions. Let me know if you've got any suggestions about the merchandise side of things, because I don't really know about that. I'm not promising I'll do any sprints for this because I just don't know if I'll have the time. But like I say, I'll always be available in the Discord, and this year we might do a watch along again in the Discord for us to all chat about what we think of the contest on the night. The contest the Readathon finishes on the time that the Eurovision Song Contest starts. I believe it's on at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night at the UK. That's when it starts, and so that will be the cut-off, and any books that come after that time will not be counted. Because we have had periods in the past where people haven't logged the last book. It just doesn't count, because then I want to switch off, I want to watch the contest, and I don't want to have to keep looking to see if other books have come in after that time. So that is the cut-off. But above anything else, this is meant to be fun. It's meant to be a laugh. You're only meant to be in competition with yourself, and it's always been that way. If there are countries where political things are going on and you don't want to be involved in reading books for that country, that is fine. If you are boycotting Eurovision or Eurovisionathon for those reasons, that is fine too. The Readathon is here for anybody who wants it. The contest is always there for anybody who wants it, and that's how it's meant to be. So yeah, I hope you like my new shirt. I thought this multicoloured version was the perfect time to read it, because Eurovisionathon is colourful. And yeah, so thank you for watching, and I will speak soon. Bye.